On behalf of the BRI Network, welcome to today's session titled How M Health Fairview Improved OR Utilization and Scheduling Using Automation. I'm Ashley, and I'll be your moderator for the session today. I'd now like to welcome today's presenters. First, I'd like to welcome Matthew Wise. Matthew Wise is the Perioperative Services Business Manager for M Health Fairview, where he oversees two of the largest facilities within the system, with Southdale facility having the highest surgical volume within the system. He holds a master's degree from Capella and has 15 years experience within the operating room with an expertise in project management and enhancing OR experience for physicians, staff, and leadership. Next, I'd like to welcome Dr. David Atashru. Dr. Atashru is the Managing Director of our perioperative business at Qventus, where he has led the design and development of the new Qventus perioperative solution, in addition to other product and clinical operations roles at the company. He holds a doctorate in medicine from the University of Missouri-Columbia and trained in plastic surgery at the University of Kentucky before completing his postdoctoral fellowship at Stanford University School of Medicine. In addition, his role at Qventus, Dr. Atashru continues his clinical practice at the University of California, San Francisco. We have an exciting session for you today. First, we'll hear from the speakers about their organizations and the challenges that leading health systems face with perioperative services. Then we'll segue to a demonstration of the new solution helping to drive perioperative growth and access. Finally, we'll hear about the impact that this strategy has at M Health Fairview and other leading healthcare organizations. We'll save about 10 minutes at the end for any questions, and please feel free to chat in your questions at any time. Without further delay, Matt, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet everyone. Before we dive in, let me introduce myself. I am Matthew Wise. I'm the Business Ops Manager of M Health Fairview, and I'll introduce you to Fairview, M Health Fairview as a whole, if you're not familiar. We're a $6 billion, 12-hospital system based in Minnesota, the Twin Cities metro area. We're a highly complex health system formed from a merger of a university and two healthcare systems. We're a highly complex health system we cover the spectrum between suburban, community hospitals, urban, and an urban academic center with a network of over 3,000 providers, 100 specialties, and 600 active clinical trials. We cover this. We have multiple locations that perform surgeries for specialties. For me specifically, I oversee two facilities with a total of 39 operating rooms doing an estimated of 20,000 surgeries per year. Southdale does 12,000 surgeries per year, one of the highest in the system, and Ridges does 8,000 surgical procedures, among the second to third highest within our system. There's a 40-60 mix of surgeons employed versus independent at both of these sites, with different variations of scheduling procedures. Our vision is to deliver breakthrough care. As an organization, we're still combining people, processes, and learning to use one instance of the Epic EHR. So we realized that we have to achieve our vision. We have to start transforming our care to help with this delivery. And let me tell you about some of the challenges we had at M Health Fairview, similar challenges which many of you experienced. First, we needed to address and manage staffing variability and turnover. We need to increase prime time utilization between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. and avoid late running cases to help optimize how we are using our resources with staff and equipment while accommodating surgical volume and increasing, still accommodating volume while trying to increase the volume during those prime time slots. Additionally, we needed to strengthen our margins. Our perioperative services are vital to our hospital and health systems bottom line, and we needed to improve our margins so we can continue to invest in the system and continue on our mission to provide the highest quality of care for patients. And we need to accommodate the growing demand for care in both of our suburban region hospitals at Southdale and Ridges. We needed to be able to accommodate more cases while improving the utilization and efficiency at the same time. Finally, we had to address all of these challenges and make life easier for independent and internal providers. We want to improve the workflows and make processes easier for staff, allowing them to have more time to focus on our patients and increase staff satisfaction, which leads to increased staff retention. In the past, we tried various approaches to address these challenges, such as changing how we schedule and how we handle staffing, but we needed a new approach. Prior to Cuventus, this is what our workflow looked like. You probably are familiar with this and experiencing the same challenges our scheduling team does. The old process for case booking placed a significant burden on both surgeon schedulers and OR schedulers by requiring them to spend time on the phone for even simple case bookings. With Cuventus, we were able to eliminate 3 of these steps and enhance our workflow to provide a better staff and patient experience. Together with Cuventus, we push opportunities to enhance the system and solve the challenges we're facing. Cuventus listened to us, and we're able to tailor our needs at Southdale and Ridges, which has allowed us to see positive outcomes, including improved OR time, access time, optimize and reduce staff workload, increased revenue, better control over the schedule, and increased efficiency. The Cuventus machine learning identified to release 655 hours of block time back to us, and out of those released hours, we were able to use 60% of those hours. This wouldn't have happened without Cuventus. With Cuventus helping us prioritize hours, we now have better control over our schedule. Cuventus helps M Health Fairview control the daily schedule by keeping surgeons and their offices honest about how late into the day a case is going to run. Since we're short-staffed, we can use the availability visualized in Time Finder to say, if you can't get this done in the time you see available, we're not going to be able to accommodate it. So an example, if they have a 3-hour case that they say they'll get done in 2 hours, but if we're not promoting that time, it's not going to show up for them. And it ends the negotiation process that we've had with our scheduling team. Basically, Time Finder gives the schedule or uses the schedule more responsibly and not schedule elective cases too late into the day when it was not possible. Cuventus also makes us more efficient. The increased OR block release lead time and better control over our daily schedule has helped us grow our case volume and help us utilize our prime time hours better. Now I'll transition over to David to tell us more about Cuventus.
Awesome. Let me just mute here. Sorry, one sec. All right, can you guys hear me okay? Yes? Okay, you got me? Is there still an echo? No. Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. So we listen to the needs of our customers and take the feedback to rapidly change and make us better. With M Health Fairview, we were able to be agile and cater to their needs. Our mission as a company is to simplify how healthcare operates. And we do that by combining innovations in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and behavioral science with a really deep expertise across clinical operations, PI, and change management. And to enable health systems to transform their care operations, we provide a complete system, which includes a real-time automation platform, and then best practice solutions and expert services to actually implement our technology. So we feel really grateful to be a proven partner with hundreds of deployments in multiple settings. So as we approach the peri-op space, what we'd heard repeatedly from operational leaders is that they're in a perfect storm of perioperative challenges. As a clinician, it's the same thing I've seen since I began training, with very little change in 20 years. Places that are successful at navigating these issues, they do so on the backs, and what I've seen is at the expense of their high-performing teams. But that's not sustainable, and we knew that there had to be a better way to do this. And so with that as background, let me take just a quick poll from all of you on some of your biggest challenges. As we bring up the poll, please select all the challenges that your experience at your organization would indicate to you. We'll give a few seconds to complete the survey. Got it. Got it. Okay. So taking a look at things, it looks like some of these challenges are pretty common across the board, specifically around staffing shortages required to operate with fewer ORs and difficulty filling that white space. Those are kind of came up as the top ones. It makes a lot of sense. So as we thought about all the amazing technology in your personal life, things that I've just come to expect and rely on, the thing that I couldn't understand was why we couldn't expect to have that same technology available to us in our professional lives. Just think about that. The AI that we have at home, that we're able to quickly look up all the options for travel within seconds online. Think about the machine learning that suggests with really high accuracy what movies we might be interested in watching and helps learn as our tastes evolve and change over time. So now everything I watch is like kids' movies. And then the AI that helps airlines manage yield optimization so their flights actually stay on time and are profitable, and airfares stay low for the end consumer like myself. And finally, like think about at home. Automation automates many of your routine things that were just manual, and we'd accepted were manual a few years ago. Turning on your lights, adjusting your temperature, locking your doors. What if those same concepts, those modern technologies, were able to be applied to the perioperative space? And what if instead of accepting that there's just going to be this hurricane, we could make meaningful strides to what we might call a perioperative paradise? And that's a future where you can find OR time in seconds at the click of a button. It's a future where you can automatically increase volume and utilization without ever having to add new staff or add operating rooms or purchase new equipment. It's a future where you can help patients get into the OR sooner, which is really why I got into medicine as a profession. And it's a future where you can give surgeons and key stakeholders like yourselves instant access to real-time data on their performance, and then their opportunities to improve because we're a competitive bunch. And this is what we've built in the partnership with M Health Fairview and all of our other innovation partners. And that's what I want to take a look at and show you how it works. So I think really just to pause here for a second though, key to achieving this vision was the 10 years Qventus had invested upfront in building the right data application and the right architecture of our system, all of which comes together in the Qventus automation platform. This architecture is consistent across all of our solution areas, and it enables us to develop and deploy new interventions and achieve results for our partners and delight our end users. I mean, that's across the inpatient space, the ED, command centers, peri-op. And I'll share some of these examples that we built with M Health Fairview in a moment. But this platform starts by ingesting, if you look there at the bottom, historical data from the EMR to train our machine learning models and to provide information and real-time insights to you. We're able to write the information back to the EHR, and this bidirectional integration is crucial for reducing the burden on the OR teams and then eliminating the extra steps and clicks in the workflow. And then to augment the EHR data, we also bring proprietary data sets, such as a longitudinal claims data set for 310 million patients on a monthly refresh, not a yearly. And that's helpful to our partners to actually compete and navigate in the market, right? So now we're actually pulling in new information and new data. And then with that foundation, the core of the solution then becomes a symbiotic relationship between creating access and driving growth. The products we've built use behavioral science principles to create additional access in the OR and then automate volume growth by strategically filling the schedule with AI-driven workflows. As volume increases, the demand for more access increases, creating what we think of as the engine of the peri-op solution. But technology in a vacuum doesn't go far enough. To solve these challenges, we need to be able to grab the people and processes on the ground and real-time insights to support end users to achieve the performance gains they're looking for. And then the market. You need to be able to actually not just operate in a silo. You need to have the data from what's happening in your market so you can understand how can you enable your providers to build a destination center, to become a center of excellence. How do you help them actually get the referrals that they're the best at? And how do you understand where there might be referrals leaking from your system or patients who just don't know about the great provision of care that you have at your system and are going around your system to get care elsewhere? And so we'll transition really quickly to start actually like looking at the solution live. And the first module we have is focused on access. And when we think about access, the thing you really need to think about yourself is how do you enable an intelligent machine to manage your block with the goal of accelerating release times by as far out as you can get, at least 7+ days in advance of where you're at now. And what would that look like, and how much benefit would that offer for you if you could actually not have to rely on your surgeons to remember to release, which I promise you is not top of mind for me or any of your surgeons, or force your schedulers to be in this like difficult position of calling an OR, or sorry, a surgeon office to be able to ask them like, will you request this time? And they've got no data to support the ask and no incentive to offer in return. So the solution we built was a machine learning algorithm tailored to the block type that's always on. It's predicting when is the first moment we can have confidence that a surgeon or service line might have time that they won't actually use. And listen, no surgeon wants to do this. So the key to getting this to work isn't just the ML. That's important, but that's not all of it. It's how you actually leverage behavioral science. Behavioral science is the study of how people make decisions. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is create behavior change. If you can't actually create a behavior change, if you can't actually change an action, you haven't done anything. So take a look at an example here. In this case, we have a surgeon's office, and his scheduler receives a first prompt 17 days in advance of surgery. Because it's the first moments that we notice that the algorithm can be confident that he had blocked that he may not need. But notice, we don't just ask the scheduler to release the time. We give them the reason why. In this case, a prediction that there's only a 12% chance that they'll actually need that time. And then what's the direct benefit to the surgeon in that moment of actually releasing that time? Here's this bump in utilization of 11%, 12% that's going to improve their utilization. And then in a single click, they can release the time, they can take office on it, they can communicate that information directly back to the OR, who can then release it back onto the grid. What we found with one of our partners is that we were automating 89 of these release reminders a month. And think about it, it's thoughtful, it's intelligent. I do not want to bug a surgeon, and I don't want to be bothered if it's actually not actionable. But like that's why it's so important with machine learning that you're only actually nudging them when it actually matters. And by doing that, releasing somewhere between 50 to 100 additional hours of block time per month, an average of 21 days out from the block date. And because the other parts of the solution we'll talk about later, we're able to drive up the utilization of that time, almost 70% in some cases. And so the next thing that you have to do and think about is now that you have all this available time, how do you fill it? And what I offer to you is that it should not be first come, first serve. It should be much more intelligent than that. So what you should have is an algorithm that's actually recruiting strategic cases to fill gaps in your schedule. And the goal should be to add at least a couple cases per hour per month and fill those white spaces. And that's flipping the script. Instead of being passive and then waiting for the time to come and then filling it first come, first serve, it's pushing it out actively to the surgeons who would be the most strategic to fill that time. And that's what we've built with available time outreach, or this ATO algorithm. It's a machine learning algorithm that's looking for any time there's an open block, or maybe there's a late release, or maybe it's a late cancellation. And it predicts who are the surgeons that are actually the best fit for that time against our prediction of their availability, and then your specification of the strategic goals. And then one by one, it's reaching out to the next best match surgeon until it fills the slot. This is something we uniquely do well. And that's what we're seeing here. If you look at this example, as soon as this robotic slot becomes available, weeks out from surgery, the algorithm strategically prioritizes outreach to this surgeon. And instead of waiting to see if a case happens to come in or taking whatever happens to come in next, we're actually going out actively and getting the best case. And that ends up reducing that Tetris game that OR schedulers have to play on a daily basis to kind of massage the schedule. And then in one click, they're able to add a case and indicate their intention to the OR and close the loop. The algorithm is also learning. This is what's so great about machine learning. Based on how they respond, it will send them more nudges, it'll send them less nudges, it'll get smarter in the times it sends to them. And as surgeons interact with this, I think the other thing that's really been a huge boon is it's how it makes a surgeon's offices feel, especially for those early career surgeons who don't have block time, or surgeons who are trying to recruit, you're trying to recruit and get to come to the OR, but you don't have enough block for them. It makes them feel like the OR is really trying and working hard to get them on the schedule. So the ATO is our push-based system. We also asked ourselves, how do you actually enable surgeons' offices to pull and find the exact time from across your system without ever picking up the phone? And that's something that's really special. How could you find it in 2 seconds and book it in 2 minutes? And how could it actually be like different than what's existed before? Different than just like a digitization of the schedule? How does you actually take it from like first generation, like what we found with like initial algorithms with like Yahoo for search, and make it like Google, where the reason why it's so delightful to use is because the results that are returned to you are so useful. Someone has taken the time to build an elegant interface because of the really smart algorithms underneath it that make it so much easier for you to find what you're looking for. And that's what we built in Time Finder. And I'll kind of show you an example of what that looks like. So here we have Time Finder. At M Health Fairview, this is something that they use a ton for the open booking of cases. And what's happening here is an independent office is able to come in, put in a patient's name. So let's say it's David, indicate the surgeon that they're looking for. And so in this case, I've got my patient, my scheduler has got one of my patients in the office in front of me. She pulls me up. She's saying, look, I'm going to look for time in the next 4 weeks for you, David, for this robotic sigmoidectomy. And here's what's really key. And as I hit search here, notice that the time actually auto predicts. So there's an algorithm that's actually predicting what the wheels in and wheels out location duration is. So you're getting accurate representation of time. But I think the other thing that's key here is consider this. Consider that as a surgeon, generally what happens is when my schedule is overwhelmed is they do the easiest thing. They just book into the next available block time. But where you win and lose is how you reduce the friction for the schedulers to actually access that open time, those white spaces. And so now for my scheduler, it's just as easy, even though my next available robotics block is 6 weeks out, she may be actually able to fill a spot for this patient right there in the office with them, find time that's in 2 weeks and hole in the schedule. So let me kind of orient you to what comes back here. You're seeing available times, and that's stratified across. In green, you've got block times. In blue, you've got open times. In orange, you have colleague times, which is time that our colleagues maybe haven't released, but we predict that they're likely not going to use. And then you can see across the different hospitals, the different locations, the different days of the week. And then it's as easy for my scheduler now who's saying like, oh, well, I was going to book it 6 weeks out, but now as I see this patient in front of me, I've got these 2 times available in the next 3 weeks that actually could work perfect for my patient. My patient's like, yep, I can make that work. Great. Let's submit that to the operating room. Let's actually indicate that Monday is actually a better time and date for them. But you know what? I'm not available that whole block. I've got clinic in the morning. My scheduler knows that. She indicates that I'm not available till 12:30 in the afternoon. Then she uploads all the procedural information, not calling anymore, not faxing. She's able to send this on. And my patient goes out the room knowing that they have a procedure date and time. And I'm able to get a case booked on the schedule. And then think about what this looks like on the OR scheduler's end. On the OR scheduler's end, they've got a work list, something where they're actually able to look through and review and see, here are all of the requests that have come in. I'm working with a number of other, I'm in central scheduling, got multiple OR schedulers. They're able to come in and say, okay, let me assign this one to me. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to see the requests that came through from this surgeon. I'm going to be able to validate that it works, approve this time, include any notes to the schedule that I need to click, and click send and send it off to them. It's as easy as that to be able to close the loop and get that case on the schedule. Then I'll see all the cases that I've approved here, the ones that I've been held, the ones that have been declined. I mean, again, a really transformative experience for the scheduling team. Let me pause here, Matt. I know we've talked about quite a few things. Would love to just get your thoughts on some of this because I know you've been close to some of these parts of the solution.
Yeah. So previously, the whole process to book a case was usually a phone call. Then it required us to go back and forth, build the case. Oh, nope, it didn't fit, causing multiple issues of just wasted time of trying to get a case on a particular date. Where now we have people looking for any open time through Qventus to say, all right, we're confident with the averages they're pulling from Epic, and it's really helping us be able to book with confidence. When they find that time, we are confident we can get that case on in that time frame. Where before, it could be a back and forth game of, nope, sorry, a little bit, Epic says it's a little bit too long, it's going to bump into another case, where I think the real, benefit is to fill in those pockets of time in between cases. It gives a lot of surgeons opportunities to find time in between those cases where they could not see them previously. And I think that's where it makes this whole process a lot more efficient than where we were previously.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. And I think like that booking workflow with Time Finder has been like a really important transition and great to be able to partner with M Health Fairview on that. So the other thing we asked ourselves was, how might we actually put real-time and transparent data at leaders' fingertips so they can actually manage accountability and have productive conversations? I think at the end of the day, like this is table stakes. Kubernetes is an analytics company. We started in that space, and I think it's a necessary step, but it's not in any way sufficient. I just don't have time. Even if I can measure what matters, even if I can see the problems ahead of time, which we can do, I just don't think that's enough. And so I'll show you a little bit about how we do the visualization, but I want to talk to you about actually what's more exciting. What's more helpful is if I'm not forcing you to look retrospectively, even if it's in real time, at data and be able to say, well, how are we going to solve this problem? But if an algorithm can actually be predicting those problems ahead of time, and then orchestrating the action behind the scene to fix that problem, and then managing accountability on it in a closed loop, that's when it gets really exciting. That's when you can actually not rely on me as the bottleneck to actually fix things, but you've got machine learning actually doing it for you. And I'll show you what that looks like. So really quickly on the just the analytics side, I think it's really critical. You got to be able to measure things in real time. You've got to be able to show surgeons a scorecard and be able to help them understand how is the system working for them, how is it helping them get into the operating room more, reinforces the behavior that this is working, both to release block earlier and get it back on the schedule, to be a better utilizer of time, but also to add additional cases. But then you want to be able to help the surgeons see at a moment's notice, anytime they want, the important metrics that matter to them, how accurate they are at scheduling of cases, the breakdown of how they compare in scheduling their cases compared to other surgeons who do those cases, the efficiency of their teams. All that's available in Kubernetes for every single one of your surgeons. That, again, that's just table stakes as we think about it. And then as we think about that also for the operating room, we want to be able to have that available for you. And I don't want to give you a slicer dicer. I don't want to make you have to go hunt and peck for everything. We have that. That's easy. What I want to do is curate it for you so you see the most important information you need to see at a moment's notice, at a glance. You can pull it up and see where your primetime utilization is, see your utilization broken out by surgeons. Give this to your head of a department or section chair so that they can manage accountability for their own individual surgeons. See how accurate the different services are at scheduling cases. And then also take a look at things like how you're using your robotics rooms and all those other things that end up becoming important to you all. I think the last thing, switching back here, I would say that coming back to the fact that it's all about creating that closed loop, though. And I think this robotics example is a great one. As we looked across our customers, what we noticed was that all of them had problems with the amount of non-robotics cases being scheduled in their robotics room, somewhere between 20 to 50%. The problem was we could visualize that on the dashboard, but how do you actually get ahead of that problem? And this is an example of that, how Kubernetes goes beyond analytics to create automation that fixes problems before they occur. So we created an algorithm that found every single case that was booked non-robotically in a robotic room weeks out in advance of surgery. As soon as that happened, we had to pair it to another algorithm. And that algorithm is searching the schedule 24/7, looking for, is there an opportunity to move that case out of the robotic room to a different room and create capacity back on the robot. But then, again, think about this, like the sensitivity to the behavioral economics of making a change. You cannot move my case as a surgeon if it's going to create a massive delay for me. So we had to create another predictive algorithm that said, we're only going to say that that's okay if we can predict with a 90% confidence that it won't delay a surgeon more than 10 minutes. And I got 3 algorithms stringed together. And when that happens, right, then the AI picks it up and says, okay, let's trigger and orchestrate the actions behind the scene by triggering an automated message, which you're seeing here, that goes to the OR director, right? Now they're able to see, here we've got a patient that's got a pelvic hematoma evacuation. It's booked for 255 minutes on the robot. That's not a great use of time if it's the non-robotics case. Here are 2 options of where you could move it to without ever delaying the surgeon. One click, you can indicate you're going to move it, and the OR director can make that move, and now you've freed up capacity on the robot. Again, a super exciting and interesting opportunity. Matt, anything to add there? Kind of comments to how you've seen this work?
Yeah, so I get these notifications often to find opportunities to expand our robotic time, which is frequent at Ridges, our smaller hospital, where we don't have as many ORs. So, and we only have 2 rooms where the robot can operate in. So having this data for myself personally and being able to move those cases into rooms where they can be accommodated to give more time for robots is important to our surgeons, our leadership, and everyone involved with expanding the robotics procedures at our facilities.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Matt. And I think then the last thing is that this brings us to our newest area of innovation. I think this is super cool for me as a surgeon. It's something that gets me really excited, and it gets me excited because no one's ever done this. No one's been able to do this. And this is something that we're doing now, and it's our new Markets Insight module. And it completes the picture for your perioperative business by going beyond what's available in your EHR. And so to be able to nimbly respond to the volatile environment that many of you might find yourselves in, you need the most recent information possible from outside the four walls of your health system. And so to that end, we secured exclusive access to a best-in-class national claims data set with more than 300 million covered lives, and data on surgeries, referring providers, patient access challenges, and the data is then tokenized at the source, which enables us to then link a bunch of disparate sources without ever transmitting PHI. And this is, I think, key. Instead of refreshing on an annual basis, we receive those updates monthly into our database. So now we're working off of claims as soon as 8 days ago, and we're able to democratize that down to any granular level you want. Put this in the hands of an individual surgeon, which I've never, ever had this available to me in real time to help me shape my practice and bring more cases to you. And I just kind of think right here, I'll just share you a quick glimpse of this here. Here's a quick glimpse of the product in this new module. It's called Practice Optimizer, and it's purpose-built for surgeons to better understand their practice patterns and growth opportunities. We highlight providers referring the types of cases that you would love to do, who would most benefit from consolidating their referrals to someone that they trust. We're also able to compare surgeons' market position to others that they care about. This is like really exciting for surgeons who are working with and like love to see what's happened just a few weeks ago so they can take action on it immediately. And then at the market level, the insights provided to you help you compare the health system's market share and volume trends relative to others in the region. We can help you hone in on areas where your system can grow, and then also think through what are the competitors doing and the cases and types of services where your growth rates are lower than the other providers in your community. And then you can zero in also on referral patterns by geography and identify regions from which you can get fewer, like where you've got maybe fewer referrals, but you could get more. And this is the kind of stuff that I think is really on the cutting edge of innovation and has tremendous potential. When we're just scratching the surface here of what's possible. So super exciting. Stay tuned to what's coming up here. And I think to transition really quick and just to pull back to look at impact so far, I would say that without a doubt, the most rewarding part of what we've done is the impact we've been able to have with our partners like M Health Fairview. Together, we've been able to achieve significant and then sustained results that meaningfully augment the business. Our partners are able to add additional case volume, and that translates into up to hundreds of cases a month that they can work with. And conservatively, that creates tremendous contribution margin for that system, which, look, I get it. At the end of the day, even as a surgeon, we understand no margin, no mission. And so many of the critical things that we do for our safety net patients are paid for on the backs of the revenue we generate from operating. And I think the other thing that's critical here is, as we thought about bringing this to market and, having the ability to lean on an architecture that we built that allowed us to scale at a lot less cost, we said, how do we just democratize it? Our goal is to get it out to everyone. And so we priced it in a way that allowed our systems to get a huge ROI and to be able to break even within months. And then I think the other thing that's also really helpful is kind of how we did the IT infrastructure. And so even for IT-strapped organizations and incredibly busy orgs, which, to be fair, everyone is, each of our partners went through that, we're able to get the system up and running quickly without a big ask of IT. And on top of that, we find that we're increasing lead time for blocks release by about a week and driving utilization of that release time because of the algorithms, because of the ML that's marketing the time, because of how much friction we've removed in booking into time by over 50%. That's almost double some of the best quoted in the industry. And then looking across our partners, we really feel great about the impact we had. And I think the ability to consistently add cases and improve utilization. So Matt, I'd love to turn it over to you and just kind of talk about some of the impact we've had together with M Health.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, one of our goals is improving our release block and overall utilization. Overall prime time utilization has increased by over 3%, even as we face staffing shortages. This also allowed us to bring 16 cases forward each month that would otherwise been pushed out or ran late outside of our prime time hours. Because these were shifted into prime time, allowing us to serve more patients, avoid delays in care, and optimize available staff, allowing them to avoid running over and staying late. It helps with employee burnout and asking people to stay late on a regular basis. Our main goal, fill prime time, and then look at additional time from there. We are now maximizing our prime time utilization, and we are now doing more cases during that prime time. We've also increased overall utilization, which is allowing us to pull more cases during prime time, which has allowed us to save resources and costs. And another thing I mentioned earlier, our goal was improving our release block and overall utilization. Through Qventus system, we've unlocked over 665 hours so far, and this is increasing each month as we drive adoption and use of the system. Our utilization is also strong, with 60% of release block time utilized. This translates in over 399 hours of release block time from the system alone. Along with increased utilization, Qventus has also helped us improve the experience for our surgeon and surgeon schedulers by simplifying the process. This has allowed us to get patients in faster, reduce burden to our staff, so they're spending less time going back and forth over the phone. Because of Qventus, we have been able to get 95% of requests responded to within 2 hours. This matters because Qventus has built a system that allows us to use more time, find more time more easily, and get faster responses, so we are able to treat more patients and take better care of our patients. For example, if we have a patient in the office that needs urgent hip surgery, we're able to find time more quickly and get them treated, preventing delays in cares. The Southdale OR scheduling team has seen their average calls handled per month decrease by 501 calls, or 51%. I'm sorry, 21%. Since this implementation of Time Finder for elective case booking, the average number of calls abandoned each month has been cut in half since Time Finder implementation. We're still operating efficiently with staffing shortages within my own department. These gains have been consistently maintained despite an increase in case volume over the last 2 months and the loss of a 0.4 FTE in my department in September, which I did not have to replace.
Yeah, and I think that that's just critical. I think we've seen this across partners, that in the midst of COVID, in the midst of the staffing shortages people have had, they've been able to, despite having less staffed rooms, they have the ORs, they just don't have the staff to run them. Despite having less staffed rooms, they're able to improve their utilization or at least maintain their surgical volume, which is a massive benefit for them in the times where they're really pressed with staffing, that they're really able to still accommodate the volume of surgeries that they had before or grow that.
And before we transition to Q&A, I wanted to share some of the lessons that we learned at M Health Fairview. One of the first things we did was identify where we had scheduling challenges and the current inefficiencies in the scheduling process. We knew Qventus was the right solution and partner to help us solve those challenges. We then took it a step further to identify more specific needs, even went down to the facility level. I then brought in those learnings to Qventus, who was eager to partner with us and tailor the solution to meet our specific needs. We then took it a step. Finally, you need to be able to strengthen relationships with your surgeons and schedulers and generate a buy-in to increase the adoption of the solution. Qventus also helps with this and was able to communicate the benefits and provide training and support to help increase adoption from the initial launch. All these takeaways made our partnership and deployment of Qventus very successful. At the end of the day, one of our main goals was to reduce the friction in our ORs both internally and externally, and we feel like we've accomplished this. Our schedulers have automation to streamline their communication and cases they schedule in a timely, easier, and more accurate manner. Our surgeons are proactively using these tools because they feel the benefits, and they're finding it easier to get time in our ORs. Our staff benefit from greater accuracy in scheduling, so it makes a smoother workflow on the day of surgery, especially when we're experiencing staffing shortages today, and constraining what we can do on a day-to-day basis. And it ultimately helps get the patients in the door faster without delays in care. With that, I'll turn it over for the Q&A portion.
And Dr. Atashru. Now I'd like to transition to our Q&A portion for the remaining time. For our webinar attendees, please feel free to enter any questions you may have in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen. If we're not able to address your question in the time remaining, we're happy to follow up with you offline. And we have our first question. What feedback have you heard from surgeons and their schedulers?
Yep. So, obviously, when we implemented this program, change is hard for some offices. But once they actually took the time to understand the answers that Time Finder was giving them and understand it would have been the same response even with a phone call, that gap was, shortened very quickly. I mean, it's rare that Cuventus, isn't showing something inaccurate or a move that we can't make to accommodate a case. So I think once they use the product and listen to it and then understand, there was a lot of phone calls, initially to check to make sure, is this correct? And more often than not, Cuventus was correct, and we had to look for a different day or time to do a procedure. So the adoption, just like anything, it will take a little bit of time, but I think with the hurdles we've jumped with making sure we're accurate in the time that's being shown and what can actually be scheduled, because we're pulling from Epic averages, that will be a very short bridge to cross with that gap in learning. So that's kind of it took a couple months for us, but we're happy to say that there's not even a lot of phone calls anymore questioning those times. So.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from David, who asks, what feedback do you hear from your scheduling team?
Yeah, so the feedback I get the most is they appreciate organizing kind of, all the requests in timely manner that needs to be answered. So the oldest response is up top, waiting for us to answer, just to signify that we should probably get to this. It shows the date, keeps us organized, where previously we were just getting faxes for block time or, random emails requesting time. It puts it all in one spot for us, which is really appreciative because we had essentially 4 different mediums: phone call, fax, email, and even just like internal calls from the floor trying to add case. It puts everyone in one avenue to keep this organized. So they're very appreciative of that time. And also, not spending a lot of time on the phones, which can drag on for a very long time. And when we're short-staffed in our department for sick calls, vacations, what have you, those phone calls can be a little burdensome. So they appreciate the fact that a lot of those negotiating phone calls are gone.
Great, thank you. We have another question here from Amy, who asks, delivering on strategic goals is always a challenge. How has this helped you as an OR leader to deliver on those?
Yep, so, for the OR, I think most of us have the same strategic goal, is improving OR utilization. I think that's one of the main goals. And so what this has done for us is it's pushed a lot of the cases that typically could run late, and times where we're having call teams and all that, and really utilizing our prime time hours, which was extremely important for us. And while we do work late some nights, and it really kind of puts a strain on our staff, which then trickles up the ladder, and it avoids a lot of those complaints. I am seeing that cases are ending when they are supposed to, and there's very little delays because we booked with confidence that Cuventus is showing us the time versus us taking the word of an office of how time works. So what time they'll need for certain procedures. So it's helped us strategically with staffing, not burning them out, utilization of prime time hours, and overall utilization with the staff we have available.
Great, thank you. We have another question from Jose that says, specifically, Matt, how did Cuventus partner with you during the implementation?
Yeah, so Cuventus, when I started in this position, Cuventus was already kind of in the works, but it was one of those things where every question I had or feature I'd like to see, I could bring it to them, and they have made it a reality for the most part. So I'm very appreciative with that partnership to listen to me. And even with the two hospitals I oversee, they do operate a little differently, but they've tailored Cuventus to each individual site, which has like a little bit different rules depending on how late a case can run or how many rooms, on a certain day. They've really partnered with me and taken the time to listen to all of the issues that, we may be seeing, or, if something didn't go as planned, what can we do to fix it immediately? And usually a fix could happen, overnight. And that I'm very appreciative of, being very responsive to any of the requests or issues I may see with the software. And honestly, it's very rare now. We've gotten to a nice groove where now we're potentially trying to open up more rooms because we're utilizing our 18 rooms at Southdale, pretty efficiently. So now, how can I use Cuventus to, venture into outside of our prime time utilization to start booking those cases, and maybe looking at potentially using later room times to book cases.
Great, thank you.
Matt, I think that's a great comment. I think one of the things that stands out to me is, as I think about this, is I was just actually having a conversation with an executive at one of our other hospitals, and they were mentioning how one of the things that was exciting for them is, as they were bringing on more rooms, the ability to be able to do that without feeling the pressure to give it out as block. And then what's more, because they have the system which is going to market the time, which is going to make it easy to access the time. But what's actually more surprising is that on the opposite side of that conversation with the executive was a surgical colleague, and that surgical colleague saying, well, like, so long as we have Kubernetes rolled out across our system, that works for me because it's working for me to get on the schedule. I don't have to have block. I can use the system to get into time. I think that's really transformative when you get to a place where you can actually open up rooms and you don't actually have to make them block, which you can, because you have a system that can actually use that time really well, make it available to all the different surgeons.
Agreed. And even to curtail on that, when we had a reduction period with COVID and having to cancel patients that had to stay overnight and had to focus solely on same-day procedures, Cuventus helped us fill that time at last minute very quickly, because we had a lot of same-day providers that didn't have block time necessarily, and still had a backlog of patients from COVID, the start of COVID, that, we didn't experience a huge loss in volume this last winter. We were maybe a little bit short of our fourth quarter from, normal times in 2019, but we did cancel a lot of our admit procedures, but we had a tool for a lot of these providers that don't typically work at our facilities to book cases, and book a lot of cases when they had all that open time available to them.
Yeah.
Great. Well, David and Matthew, thank you so much for the presentation today. I think we'd like to close with any final thoughts from either or both of you regarding this presentation and the progress that Cuventus is achieving.
I mean, I can start. I'm very happy where we're at now, but this is an evolving software. It can help us out, beyond, surgery scheduling. If we add a surgeon or a staffing aspect to it to give us confidence in how many rooms we could open up, I think the software can be tailored to whatever you need, which is exciting. And I don't think there's been a challenge that they haven't tried tackling for me and come with some sort of result. So, I'm happy where it's at now, but I'm even more excited of where it can go. And, if we get to the point where, I hands off, just, let the bookings go, and basically my team's there just to make sure everything, it looks accurate. I'm excited for times like that where the AI can kind of take the wheel for us, and we're just there just to make sure everything is flowing correctly. So that's what I'm most excited for, just the future of the software and the partnership we have with them.
Yeah, I think I'd build on that, Matt. I think I'm really excited in that. I think we're finally at like a pivotal change point in society. I think for so long we had accepted things had to be a certain way. But what happens is you have these step function changes and opportunity when new technology gets introduced. And so that doesn't have to exist anymore. Before there was Google search, I did everything manually. in an encyclopedia or looking someone up in a textbook or in a phone book. And then we had algorithms built for search and everything changed. And I think we're at that step function position. So I think like what's exciting to me is how this is like the amount of interest we see in the market and hospitals all looking to say, how do we adopt this type of technology and how can it be easy to do? And I think the other part of that is just like the call to say, it doesn't have to be like, if this is something that can help solve problems for you, and that's kind of how Cubenus thinks about what we do, it's artificial intelligence operationalized to solve problems. And if you have problems that you want to solve, you shouldn't have to just accept that those problems persist. Like there is technology now today that is accessible to you to actually get that to happen. And I'd love to have a conversation with you on how we could partner and help democratize this. Because at the end of the day, like how I'm going to make and how we want to have an impact in healthcare is by simplifying how healthcare operates across the country. And we do that at scale by working with partners like yourselves.
Great. Matt, David, thank you so much for the presentation today. With our remaining time, I'm going to go ahead and open another poll, just asking for any feedback from the attendees here regarding the presentation, and also an opportunity to type in any last-minute questions.
Actually, I think the time limit might have been kind of short on this one.
Is that?
There we go. Thanks.
We'll leave that poll open for about another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll wrap up to give everyone some time back.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. We appreciate everyone coming.
Matt, David, thank you so much. And a special thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today.
Great. Take care, everyone.